I think it's good. Okay. Well, hi everybody. Welcome to the Istio Networking Working Group meeting. And today we have 3 items on the agenda. So first we'll do a brief on the state of the Istio 1.1 just before anybody asks, because I know that's on top of everybody's mind. And second, a little update on what's going on with the endpoints post 1.1. So there have been some discussions on Slack, some questions. So I just want to sort of update the community with what we're doing in this space. And the third item, Vadim will talk a bit about secure egress traffic control. So that's also for Istio 1.1. Yeah, we can start. So Josh, I think you're the release manager for 1.1.
Yeah,
right? So
I'm Josh Blatt, and I recently started doing at least aspects of release management. I'm not sure. I think we've kind of.
Has anybody else lost them? Or...
Yeah, we lost them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they are lost.
Let's try the old
I see
style.
everybody in here. Okay.
For those of you who are
Okay,
wondering
so
why we're
Can you
always
hear us?
disappearing, we always test out new versions of Google Hangouts internally. That's why it's so flaky. Sorry, guys. So a quick update on 1.1. We're trying to create release candidate 0 this week. The current status is we did a trial run because we have new people creating releases for the first time to create Snapshot 6 for 1.1. That went out, I think, on Tuesday. Snapshot 6 has got almost everything that release candidate 0 will have. There are a couple more commits that we're waiting for. But actually, if we have to wait much longer, we're just going to time out and make Snapshot 6 release candidate 0.
And next week,
1 second, Josh. I want to
Yeah.
make sure they are hearing us. I
Can
see
you guys hear
Vadim.
us?
Vadim,
Yeah, okay,
can you
good.
thumb up? Okay, thank you.
And by the way, the difference between a snapshot and a release candidate, and even a release in terms of the process, is just a naming convention, and the testing that follows. If anyone wants to understand what release candidate 0 is going to be like, pick up Snapshot 6 right away.
we identified some problems with upgrades, so probably next week we'll have another release candidate. The current release candidate should work, including for upgrade, but there are some issues with overrides and with the process that we want to fix. So some people may be affected.
Would it help if we paste into the document here, the link to the release?
Yeah,
snapshot?
sure. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll add a link to the snapshot.
Yeah. And did you mention you're gonna send the spreadsheet?
Yeah, so that's ready to go. Actually, the spreadsheet. So I'll send it out. I'd like advice on this. Do we wait for release candidate 0 and then send out the link, or do we just say start testing it now with Snapshot 6?
I think we can start testing now. I mean,
Okay.
we have a lot of stuff to test and to go over different clusters, different install options, different upgrades, and documentation needs to start.
Okay. All right, then I'll set out the sign-up sheet today, and somebody will tell me where that should be sent.
Yeah. So something worth mentioning is that the documentation is on the website called preliminary.istio.io.
If someone doesn't know that yet,
Yes, exactly.
There may be newer contributors who don't know it, so it's always good to mention it.
Okay, I'll put that in the announcement email.
Okay.
I was digging through and I found the last, and I think it was the 1.0 announcement email from Andy, but not the announcement, but the testing email. So Josh, I will find that and we can structure something just like
That'd be great. I already have the spreadsheet ready to go. I just need the email structure and all that.
Meanwhile, the mailing list changed and pretty much everything else changed.
Yeah.
Right. So there, definitely have a look at the new install with Helm page, because there is an extra step where you install the CRDs, which I think that's new in this release. And not installing those will lead to some bad problems.
Yeah.
So, okay. Please follow the instructions as they are there. They've been updated, and
well, there are two more steps actually, not only CRDs, it's also the Helm dep update and the other stuff.
okay.
And Steve is working to remove that for the final release.
Yeah.
We found a solution that doesn't require it.
And is there like anything else that it would be good to focus on with? Like, do we need to test the multi-cluster or like the mesh expansion?
Everything needs to be tested. I mean, mesh expansion. I mean, everything that we tested previous releases needs to be tested and on each different cluster. I mean, we test on JKE. We expect people to test on their own clusters, and with all options as usual.
Okay. And related to the outstanding bugs, is there some sort of label that people need to apply if they find something critical?
Yeah.
Just around that one.
Yeah, so the milestone should be one. I'll put this in the instructions. Milestone
Yeah.
should be 1.1, and the priority should be P0 or unprioritized. Otherwise, we will probably not look at it.
No,
I think
please
we will
unprioritize,
have,
please.
Okay,
we
fair enough.
might have too many bugs that are still that are still targeting the milestone 1.1.
Yeah.
That's fine. They'll still, I mean, if there are bugs, they'll still
We're
be
doing
fixed.
scrubs
I
on
think,
those.
I think we should
Scrubs,
have a label saying, that's like sort of like release 1.1 newly found problem.
We follow the same process as 1.0. I mean, let's not have another change.
Okay.
I mean, it's useful to indicate how critical it is, but let's leave that release manager and
Okay.
To sort it out.
Yeah,
and,
I will say that the bias is definitely to not let anything into 1.1
That
at
is
this
not
point.
critical, yeah.
That's not critical. But there will be plenty of 1.1.x dot releases or patch releases. I'm not sure.
and at the same time, if you find anything blocker, please Slack chat,
Yeah.
send ping immediately. I mean, don't wait for if it's a real blocker.
Don't just open the issue. That's the idea, right?
Well, open the issue and ping someone.
Make a lot of noise.
Make noise, yeah.
Yeah.
If it's really
Okay.
But to make noise, it is sufficient to just put it in the 1.1 milestone and leave it unprioritized. We will see that.
Okay.
I'd just like to expand on that just a little bit. If you prioritize it, we may miss it. So please do leave it unprioritized.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we may not get to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So any questions or other questions related to 1.1 status? Okay, good. So let's move to the second item, which is related to the endpoints. So what is going on with the endpoints? And that's like a sort of common update. There are a few people working on that, like Nate, Ingale, Nino in pilot, and also like Jason is working on, and others are working on the MCP side. So as you probably remember, almost a year ago, there was this pilot decomposition proposal, which was about adding a layer of API around Pilot and making Pilot a bit slimmer and not necessarily dependent on the platform like on Kubernetes. And that's like a longer term work item. We did it in step. The first step was to use MCP to send CRDs to Pilot. So that was the configuration. And it involved like sending gateways, virtual services, and service entries. Service entries as they relate to external services or for the mesh expansion. And Pilot still contains code right now to read directly from Kubernetes registries to read the endpoints and the services. So the second phase of this work is to actually ingest services and endpoints via MCP. And those can be coming from Gale or from other service registries like Consul or anything else, Cloud Foundry and so on. And where we are now with this, so there is a pending PR which has been code approved in Gale to generate what we call synthetic service entries that contain basically Kubernetes services and Kubernetes endpoints, and there can be additional like plugins into Gale. So those synthetic service entries will be sent to pilot via MCP, and this is pending and will be merging to, I guess, 1.1.1 as soon as we're done with 1.1 release.
When it's tested, it will probably land in.
Yeah, exactly. So the next phase is actually to make the equivalent changes in pilot to ingest those endpoints and hook them up directly into the XDS push code for endpoints. Like that will send the configuration to Envoy. And Nino is working on this. Like what this enables, it obviously like enables use cases like, multi-cluster, like hybrid endpoints and all that. And it makes our pilot, as we discussed before, a bit slimmer. So it's a fairly important piece of work. We hope to land it in the next, I guess, 1.1.1 release. And so please, if you we'll make an announcement when this is like ready to go or in its code review or maybe testing. It will definitely have to undergo, performance tests and everything. In the initial phase, I think we talked about using regular MCP for endpoints, and we will measure the performance. And if needed, we will switch to incremental MCP. So incremental sends just the incremental updates.
When? I mean, that's not for 1.1.
So yeah, no, not for 1.1, for 1.1.1, like next release, right? So we might again, there be like a phased approach. And the idea is to not to basically not to cause mayhem in the current code. So we go as gradual as we can, not to disturb, functionality and behavior. All right.
This one we need to be discussed with you.
Yeah.
If it's a feature or if it's a bug fix or not.
Yeah. So actually there was a discussion last week. So since this is internal behavior, it's not like externally visible to the user.
The issue is if it's a bug fix or if it's and how risky it is.
Sure, exactly. I see. Shouldn't we just release one too earlier?
That's a very good point.
Okay.
Has been debated at length in the past. It's not a feature; it's a bug.
Right. So So apparently, Jan, what was discussed in the last TOC was that features are those that are visible directly to the customers. So, for instance,
this will be super visible to the customer because they will change the whole multi-cluster configuration. But it's fixing a bug in multi-cluster where we have problems because the API server is not reachable and some security issues around multi-cluster. So we treat it as a security fix. So it's even it's a bit riskier and it sounds like a feature. It's important enough for enough users that we're trying to get it in.
Yeah. So I guess the TOC will decide how the release will be named. In terms of how this will be enabled, right now we have use MCP flag that's a Boolean. And there is if it's set to true, it actually enables an MCP server to connect to Gale. There be an additional flag with maybe a list of servers for ingesting endpoints, right?
Yeah. One more detail on to add here. So there is some. I'm doing some coding to move the console adapter also out of pilot. And eventually also remove the dependency from pilot. So in 1.2, definitely will have some bigger changes around this. And it's important to know that you can have any MCP implementation. So we have Gale, which is obviously the default implementation, but you can have your own config repository, your own discovery system, and you can integrate it by just implementing the protocol. And that should be already possible with 1.1. I mean, it's a feature that we have. What we are discussing here is what is the default option and how we recommend people to deploy stuff. It's not like we're implementing something new. The whole thing is already implemented. It's just not enabled by default and may or may not have different components at different level of stability. That's
yeah. But I think for the next release, we want to turn on MCP configuration on by default, right? And maybe the endpoints will be protected with the flag. So
we want so to answer the chats here, yes, and I mean we are trying to figure out how we can make monthly more frequent major releases, but it's we have a history of having trouble to release. 1.1 is what, 6 months into making. We need to find some way to fix this problem.
Why are you looking at me? It's not my fault.
No. You're a release manager. Come on, you should have released it 3 months ago.
So there is always the trade-off between velocity and quality, because we can actually enforce a higher quality bar, but that means fewer feature will get in.
Well,
so I think in the past, probably the TOC favored the higher velocity.
No.
So now they're probably switch gear. In any case, it's actually not within the networking group that we can decide on which release will have what.
Yeah,
okay?
TOC should sort it out and will provide feedback.
Right. From our perspective, we need to deliver good features with good quality, and that's it.
But I would say that everyone is concerned about it, and it's highly visible, and we are all trying to find ways to move to a faster release cycle. It's just we don't have yet agreement on how, and we have a long history of not being able to do it. So, any comments? Or are we already muted? Or lost the connection?
It's still working. Oh man.
No, we are still working. Yeah.
Okay. Can somebody please say something?
Hi, Andrea.
Yes.
I can hear you fine.
Okay, so no comments related to the endpoints? Okay, does anybody want to help when this is ready? Help with the testing?
Do you mean 1.1, Andrea, or 1.2?
That's going to be 1.1.1 or 1.2. So it's not going to be this release.
Whenever it's ready, we'll figure it out how to label it and how to launch it. Let's focus on implementing and having it work better than the current solution, and then we can figure it out. Okay.
Okay, so please let me know if you have a specific interest in this feature and you want to enable some cases. Maybe there is some service registry, for instance, that you want to try with. You want to build an MCP server for that. Now, by the way, the MCP are called source and sink. So the server is the source.
No, I think we are shipping with the old version of the protocol, and there is a new protocol that is not yet in use, not yet tested. So it's still not clear which one people should target, because again,
but it's still, you have a source that can send services and endpoints, right?
Okay.
I think you have an option of using them both for backward compatibility purposes, because Cloud Foundry has started implementing the MCP sort of server prior to 1.1, and for that reason, I think we left the old server in place till they do the migration.
Do you know? My understanding is that Pilot is also using the old one right now.
I think Pilot has an option actually. It has an option for the client legacy and the new one.
The question is what got tested, because we did 1 week of testing stability and so forth, and whatever was tested, that's probably what we are going to ship. So the other one is, again,
for sure,
it's an option that is not yet qualified. Okay.
If there is no other question related to that, we can switch to Vadim. Hand over to Vadim. Hi, Vadim. We can already see you, so please feel free to share.
Okay, just a moment. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'll present a secure Egress traffic control with Istio 1.1. Everything is already implemented and documented. So I will just to share with you. and compare Istio with other solutions for egress traffic control. Okay, so we want to control securely access to the external services from a cluster. We collected requirements for secure egress traffic control, and in particular, we found requirements from Kubernetes network C group. So as you can see, as a project administrator, I want to ensure that my pods only make outgoing connections to the pods services they are expected to connect to, so that if hackers break into my pods, they can't use them to attack arbitrary targets. And the requirements are basically to provide Kubernetes-aware firewall, DNS-aware firewall, and also recognizable source IP. Okay, and so to present the requirements that we collected from our customers, the requirement is to support TLS with SNI, since basically all the traffic from the cluster in enterprises, in organizations, is usually encrypted, usually uses TLS. We want to provide monitoring of the destination SNI and of the source. We want to be able to define policy rules per cluster. For example, any microservice may access star.foo.com or mydb2bar.com. So we want to use also as a destination both wildcard domains and specific hosts. And we also want to define policy rules per source, for example, to use pod or namespace or service account as a source. And we want to specify that, for example, microservice A may access star.foo.com, and while microservice B may access mydb2.bar.com. We want to do it securely to prevent any tampering with the policies, and preferably we want to do it transparently to the microservices, so we do not want to change containers, we do not want to change the code of the applications. So these are the requirements, and just to remind you, security threats. So any microservice can be attacked either from the outside or from the inside by some malicious developer or DevOps person. And the attackers may want to perform different kinds of attacks, to steal data and to transfer it outside of the cluster. They may want to connect to external services to download software updates for their malicious software. They may want to break into the external services using the cluster, and they may want also to perform DDoS attacks from the cluster. And there are also probably unknown attacks that we don't know, but we still want to prevent them. In short, we want to control and to monitor the traffic from our cluster and to define policies for the egress traffic from our cluster. So there are two other solutions to egress traffic control. So first, we have Kubernetes network policies. They are transparent, okay? So you don't have to change containers or code. They are Kubernetes aware, so you can specify, for example, which pod can access or which namespace can access which external service. However, they are not DNS aware, okay? So you have to use IP addresses or ranges of IP addresses. You cannot use domain names. So this is a problem that Istio solves. Now, another solution is to use some legacy proxy or firewall and to configure microservices to use the proxy for external traffic. So you would use some proxy protocol, okay, and you would configure the microservices. You would change the microservices, or you would define some environment variables, so it's not transparent. So legacy, this gateway of proxy or firewall is not transparent. It's not Kubernetes aware, but it is DNS aware. Okay, so you can define probably their domain names, host names, and so on. So comparing with that, Istio is like the best of all the worlds regarding the Egress traffic. So it is transparent, it is DNS aware, and it is Kubernetes aware. Okay, so you do not need to configure the applications. You don't need to define environment variables. Okay, you do not need to use any special proxy protocols. And you can use the same Istio policies for ingress, egress, and inside the cluster traffic. You use the same, the single policy language, okay, through them all. You have to configure your external monitoring or access control systems only once and use it for all the traffic, ingress, egress, and in-cluster traffic. And it is integrated with Kubernetes service accounts, okay? And you can also gain Istio traffic management features. You can apply load balancing, circuit breaker, timeouts, reprise, fault injection, and so on for to the Egress traffic. And it is also integrated with existing Istio policy and telemetry adapters. And we had several customers that asked for it, okay? So Istio Egress traffic control is transparent, it is Kubernetes aware, it is DNS aware, and as a bonus, it's also Istio aware. So you can use the same policies for all the traffic, including Egress traffic. So any questions meanwhile?
Hey, Vadim, I think it might be useful just to highlight what are the changes in the space in 1.1, because I feel like this material seems there was an update a couple of months ago to this workgroup.
Right, okay. So so let me explain what we changed actually. And so here we had a, let's say, security hole that just to explain the situation, we apply to provide security policies by source. Okay, we applied MPLS between the application pod and the gateway pod of Egress. Okay, and there we had two different SNIs. We had the inner SNI, the original one, the SNI of the connection. And we had the SNI of the MPLS tunnel, the outer SNI. And that outer SNI was reported to the mixer, but the routing was performed by the inner SNI. Okay, so we had this security hole. There was a possibility for fake outer SNI attack. Okay, and what we implemented in Istio 1.1, we added two filters to prevent this attack. So in the gateway pod in Envoy, we have a SNI verifier filter, which compares which verifies that the inner SNI and the outer SNI they are equal, and if not, it blocks the traffic. And we have in the sidecar Envoy, we have forward the downstream SNI filter. It just forwards the inner SNI as the outer SNI of the MPLS connection. So in short, what we implemented in 1.1, we closed this security hole. Okay, and now, in my opinion, we can provide secure Egress traffic control in Istio with all the benefits of Istio.
And I think we also added in terms of Egress a lot of options around SNI routing and for the normal Egress, not Egress gateway, which is slightly related.
Okay.
One question I have is, this is a great feature for people who want to have an Egress gateway. Can we turn it off by default for people who do not use the Egress gateway, because it requires additional configuration, and we've seen a lot of users who are not using Egress gateway, yet we are using quite a bit of resources with autoscaler because it gets all the configs, and even if it's not used.
Yeah, that's one thing I'd like to understand too. So what does the out-of-the-box service entry gets me, and why would people actually need this thing on top of the service entry, which we also have SNI support now?
Okay, so by default, the traffic is not directed through the Egress gateway, so it goes directly from the pod to the external service. If you want to apply, to direct the traffic through the Egress gateway, you have to explicitly configure it.
And also, it's the user experience a bit tricky because they need to do all kind of rules for each host. I mean, it's I believe it's a destination rule. I mean, that 2 or 3 things that need to be configured to get this.
Right.
The idea, if we had a global flag that say, hey, I want all my egress to go through Egress gateway, and user will just use the existing standard service entry, and they will automatically be routed if that's the policy of the company. And in the process, also starts the workload for egress, so it doesn't sit around doing nothing.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, I guess, for 1.2, right?
For 1.2, of course. I mean, 1.2, hopefully no more features in 1.1 in the next few days.
Okay, good. So,
but still, I mean, for 1.1, I think it's a valid question if we provide documentation or instruction, and if we turn it off by default, or because many people just install Istio and they get a bunch of resources allocated, and then they complain that, hey, Istio is using how many CPUs, memory, and whatever. And it's a bit tricky for them to understand that this, for example, Egress gate actually used, and they could be turned off safely if they don't use this feature. And if they use this feature, probably they will know, because they need to do the additional configuration and again test it and start up enough egress to handle the capacity, because even if we start it automatically, it's not started automatically with the right capacity, right allocation, right autoscaler, because you need to know how many egress requests they will do. So I don't think we are stopping anyone by turning on by default. We have for people who don't use it, we waste resources, and for people who are using it, probably is not properly allocated.
Okay, so let me cancel it by default.
I don't know. It's a tricky question because it has impact on backward compatibility. So if someone was using it, then
right,
it's not a trivial issue. Just wanted to raise it for people to think about it, not.
And I'll point out that same exact thought process is happening at other places in the project right now, as we try and get the right balance of letting people adopt features easily while not encumbering them with things they're not going to use. I don't think we have that balance right yet, and I don't think we quite understand yet where the right one is. We just know it's not right yet.
Yep.
Yeah, I think this is also related to the issue I opened yesterday. A lot of users also stump on when they're using Istio. So the first thing they do is they inject the sidecar to their microservices, and if any of their services happen to use external services outside of the mesh, they would spend a lot of time just to figure out, why is this not working? Because Istio has this configuration that protects everything going outside of the mesh, and this is within the Kubernetes cluster. So everything going outside of the mesh, like if you go to Amazon or Google, IBM cloud services, it would be totally blocked by default. And a lot of users just stomp on that. A lot of users ask us, what is the single global configuration to disable that behavior? Because I'm just evaluating Istio. I don't want to learn how do I configure my services to talk to external service just yet, because I want to get my thing running in the mesh first.
So then we did quite a bit of research on this as well, and we had a lot of discussions. I think the problem we are encountering, I mean, there is obviously a way to have original destination, and we discussed in the past. The problem we are hit is that with the default configurations that we are shipping, port 80 is already taken by Ingress gateway. So we get port conflicts and all kind of problems. However, with the new sidecar and isolation, it is possible, if you put a sidecar resource in a namespace, it is possible to configure it to, for that particular namespace to have a default to go to be open by default. And this particular thing also avoids the whole issue about backward incompatibility. I mean, if someone actually wanted the block by default and they upgrade to 1.1, they will suddenly be surprised. So I think it's a reasonable solution to tell users that if they want to have open by default, they should use the sidecar, because they also solve the scalability problem and it's an opt-in. The alternative, again, to put some default options, it's possible for 4.4.3, I believe, but there are all kind of conflicts with the Egress gateway, because we have same port used by both an internal service, which is Egress gateway, and by the service entry. Does it make sense?
I don't think people will get to even virtual services or destination rule when they're trying to run their services in the mesh. The first thing they want to see is, does my service continue to work in the mesh without even leverage any of the feature of the Istio, other than, I got my sidecar injected. Okay, now can I see what's going on? Is my service actually running? That's the first checkbox they're going to do. A second checkbox they're going to do is, can I see any metrics or tracing out of the mesh? So they're not going to learn sidecar API at that stage, because they're not even learning virtual service at that stage.
I 100% agree with you. I mean, that's why we try to find a solution for this as well. The problem is that with what we have right now in 1.1, I don't think we have any other practical solution, because that's how, I mean, if you can enable sidecar globally, and then all namespaces will be isolated, and we can get this to work. So if you use a new configuration to have by default, which is opt-in, but if you don't opt in to sidecar, if you don't use the isolation, we just have the problem of the ports being already used. I mean, it's.
No, question. The issue is with HTTP ports. So for TCP ports, you still can provide this behavior.
In reality, everyone cares about HTTP, HTTPS. I mean, yes, we can solve the problem already for ports that are not yet in use by the mesh. I don't know if anyone.
No, only for HTTP ones. So for 4.4.3, you can provide this behavior, but not for 80.
For 4.4.3, okay. Let me double check if it works for 4.4.3. It may work.
Yeah, it's already documented, by the way, on the Egress task, so you can check.
Yeah, maybe I'm misunderstanding the port thing. I thought there is a global config introduced by Shuran and Vadim just recently, so the user can turn that global configuration within the mesh config to say, hey, I want to open up all the traffic from any of my microservices going outside of the mesh.
But it doesn't work for port 80. That's, I mean, we tested it. That's how we got into this. It fortunately doesn't work for port 80, and it has a problem of, hey, if you upgrade, and you are kind of relying on the fact that we block by default, user will be in an insecure situation, because suddenly they will be able to make requests outside. It's the same discussion with the Egress and with the other, all the other defaults that can we say, how do we change them safely and inform the user? But
yeah, maybe at least do it for the demo profile, because you don't have to worry about upgrade for the demo profile, and the profile was intended to have the user. I
don't mind it. I think even if we do it only for 4.4.3, I think it will be super useful for people, because, well, maybe it's a feature, not a bug, that port 80 doesn't work. Who knows? Maybe we don't want people to use outgoing connection of port 80.
Well, on the bright side, most of the services are HTTPS.
Exactly.
Right, so that's a good thing.
Yeah,
I think the most stamp on was HTTPS and 4.4.3.
I'm very happy to have it in the demo profile. I'll also be happy to have it in the default profile if we have an answer for the upgrade issue. I mean, if we find a consistent answer for egress policy and everything else, it seems reasonable. Everyone is, I mean, including ourselves. I mean, when first thing we do is we try to do apt-get install, and it doesn't work. So it's.
Yeah, I would say maybe only for the demo profile for 1.1 because, like you said, the upgrade problem it's bigger because you have to detect whether the user have any service entry created to determine whether they are using this feature.
No, Lynn, but if we find a consistent answer about how we deal with this kind of default behavior changes, I mean, one proposal was, I believe, if it's an install, a fresh install, we can use a new behavior, and if it's an upgrade, we keep the old one, or clear documentation. Is a different proposal being floating for this class of problems? I mean, egress, policy,
Yeah.
and this one. If we find the solutions, then we can probably add this to the list of things to defaults to change. For demo profile, I don't think anyone would object. Everyone will be happy to see it. So don't think there is any discussion. Just send a PR and.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do a PI at least for the demo profile, and we need an overall process on the project. How do we change default value when they are not the ideal value, or maybe because people made a typo, maybe the name wasn't consistent. I mean, we see that problem all around, like you said.
And I would say from the three things that we are discussing about changing the default, this is probably the most useful for users. I mean, the other tools impact resource usage, latency, whatever, but this one is, really immediately helping the user use Istio.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, a lot of users stump on that. Because I find out that like 50% of the user have problem with service entry and outside getting out of the mesh because they hit it before they even explore canary deployment and traffic shifting.
Yep, I think all agreement here. Just we need to find a solution for upgrade, and maybe our TOC will sort this out also.
Okay, I think Vadim wasn't done with the presentation.
Oh, sorry, Vadim.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so the implementation and possible attacks and how Istio prevents the attacks. Okay, so first you direct the egress traffic through a gateway, and you also have to apply special security measures for the gateway. So you should probably run it on a separate node, and you should not run other applications on that node and so on. And you should maybe perform some thorough security scans on that component and on that node. So first is to direct the traffic through the egress gateway by pilot, routing tables. Then you apply monitoring and access policies using the telemetry and policy. Then the third step is you have to provide some L3 firewall with a trivial configuration that would limit all the outgoing traffic from the cluster. It will allow only traffic that originates from the gateway to go outside. Okay, so this is how you actually prevent the tampering. Okay, and the whole picture is you have these Istio components. I guess the control plane and the gateways, some special security measures should be applied to them, so the hackers should not be able to break neither telemetry, nor policy, nor pilot, nor gateway. And you should put some L3 firewall on the outgoing traffic. Okay, so now let's the responsibility. So Istio provides number 1 and number 2 routing and monitoring and access policy checks. And to prevent bypassing the gateway, you have to apply some additional security measure like L3 firewall, network policies, and so on. Okay, and this is the responsibility of the cloud provider. Now, let me explain the possible attacks, and let me show you how Istio actually prevents them. We suppose that we have the following policy. Microservice A is allowed to access star.ibm.com. Microservice B is allowed to access mongo1 composedb.com. And all the egress traffic must be monitored. And the scenario is that microservice A is compromised, and the attacker wants to access star.ibm.com unmonitored. Okay, so microservice A is allowed to access star.ibm.com So the attacker will also be able to access stuff.ibm.com. However, the attacker wants to do it unmonitored. Okay, the attackers want to tamper with Istio monitoring, and additionally, microservice A will try to access mongo1 composed.b.com, which is prohibited according to the policy. Okay, so there are several attacks. So first, the attacker will try just to bypass Istio proxy and the Egress gateway. Okay, however, this is prevented by the L3 firewall. Okay, so the attacker will not be able to do it. The second attack is to compromise the Egress gateway. However, since Egress gateway should run with additional security measures, it will also be impossible. Okay, so that means that the compromised microservice will have to direct the traffic through the gateway. There is no other choice. Okay, so all the traffic through the Egress gateway will be monitored, and all the cluster security people will be able to monitor the traffic to apply some algorithms, to anomaly detection and so on, and they will be able to detect the suspicious traffic. Okay, so additional attack that the attacker will try to perform, the attacker can try to access mongo1 composed.b.com, which is prohibited for microservice A. So a possible attack is to impersonate as microservice B. However, this attack is prevented by Istio strong identity support based on Kubernetes service account. So this attack is also not possible. Okay, so I will paste the link to the design document about secure Egress traffic control, and you are welcome to maybe to try other attacks and to see if there are any security holes. Currently, I don't see any. Any questions, feedback?
Is there any YAMLs associated with each of the scenario you are describing here?
No. So everything is documented. So you have different examples for Egress traffic control with TLS origination, without TLS origination, with wildcard hosts, and you also have examples of policies that you can apply. So it's documented on
But not in,
yes?
but not in the context of your example here, or through two of the services. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So any other feedback, questions?
Okay, so no other questions?
Security is tricky, always.
So, Vadim, I have sort of a meta question here. So this is already possible with like Istio 1.1, right? What you describe here, okay? So it's not about upcoming work that you plan on that in this area, right? Okay, just right. So basically, and can like do you the document you pasted in the chat, is it more related to the discussion we had with Lynn, or is it related to your presentation here?
Right, it's related to the discussion we had with Lynn, okay, and I will update the meeting notes, okay, with this presentation and the link to the design document.
Oh, okay, yeah, that would be awesome. Okay. Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
So is there any other topic for today? We have 7 more minutes.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Shuram. He made a change yesterday I think in Pilot that was really helpful. So I guess I was recently stumped on that when you create a virtual service to point to two hosts, multiple hosts, I'm sorry, when you create a service entry point to multiple hosts, you actually need to create a virtual service bind to your service entry. And it has been like an eye-opener. Oh my gosh, I have to do that for even just to allow my microservice to talk to two of these cloud services. You have to actually do virtual service in addition to service entry. So that was like, I stumped on that for quite a while. So I believe Shira actually made a change yesterday. I'm still validating as part of our automated testing that eliminate the lead for the user to create virtual services in that case. So they would just need to create service entry for whichever hosts they want their microservice to access, and then it would be guaranteed it would only allow to those hosts specified in the service entry.
Yeah, awesome, Shriram.
Maybe we should update the documentation and kind of make sure that everyone who's using service entry for egress is using only this mechanism. And because we had the port based and ATCP and a lot of other things that are more complicated.
Yeah, let me know if I explain anything wrong, Shriram. But yeah, I feel like it's a really good simplification for our user. Yeah.
No, I agree. It's great. I mean, thank you, Shriram.
Thank you.
I think,
all right. Anything else? Nope. Okay, then I think we get 5 minutes back from our time, which doesn't happen often. Thank you very much to everybody, and thanks to Vadim for the presentation, and to Shriram, who improved the service entry, like user experience, because that's what it is. And thanks, Ding, for bringing this up. Like, I think we should also like give this kind of shout outs when something very often happens in Istio. So thank you. All right. So happy testing 1.1, I guess. And hopefully by the time we meet next time in 2 weeks, we'll have a very good release. Okay.
Yes, thanks. So that's what I said.
Thanks, folks. Bye. Thanks, Vadim.
Bye.
Bye.